This is an update video to the spreadsheet video I made a couple of months back. This has been requested for such a long time. I'm so sorry for the delay. So this time around, we're going to be making the whole spreadsheet setup. So that's the cash flow plus the investment trackers. Let me show you what we're going to be working on. Alright, so here we have a simple personal finance dashboard that I built using spreadsheets. I mentioned before that the way I track my personal finance system is that I divide it into two categories. That's the cash and the investments. So what we're going to make today is an updated cash flow tracker, a mutual fund investment tracker, which can be adjusted for individual stocks, and a Pag-IBIG MP2 investment tracker. So if you want to learn how to make this entire spreadsheet system step by step, keep watching. Yo, what's up friends? Welcome back to this week's video. If you're new here, what's up? My name's Nicole and I make videos on personal finance, investing, self-development, and other fun and interesting stuff. So before we start, I want to introduce you guys to this video's sponsor, Datacamp. Datacamp is an online learning platform to learn about data analytical skills. Right now, the entire world is driven by data. Even the entries in your finance tracking spreadsheet, they are data. Regardless of what career or industry you're from, I think everyone can benefit from having some level of data analytical skills. It's super important to learn how to manipulate and interpret data so that you can make better and more informed decisions. I always say that it's important to invest in yourself, and one way to do that is by learning new skills that level you up as a person. Currently, there are more than 300 available courses on Datacamp covering topics on data science, coding with Python and SQL, and even fundamental spreadsheet courses. Spreadsheet everything. Signing up is easy and you get access to the first chapters of all of their courses for free. Free! Membership is also pretty affordable, with the standard plan costing about $12 a month if you pay annually. Much cool! So go and sign up for Datacamp now through the link in my description. Alright, let's start. There are definitely better ways to build a finance tracker spreadsheet, but the way this sheet is built uses very simple formulas. Nothing too complicated, so if you've never used Google Sheets before, you should be able to follow along. So before we start, I want to show you guys some of the basic formulas we're going to use so that you know how to make adjustments to your own sheets. Alright, so I'm assuming you haven't used Spreadsheet before, so I'm going to teach you a few skills that we're going to use later. So the first one, how to turn this number into money format. Let's say I'll type 3,000 right here. What I need to do is I go up here to the numbers, and then I can choose the number format I want to put. I'll just select financial, and it added some zeros to it. Next, to get the sum of two or more cells, I'll just input equals sum, and then I'll put in the parenthesis the range of values. Let's say, for example, I want to get the sum of these 4 cells. I'll just click this, hold shift, there. Another way to do it is just by clicking all of the cells. Let's say, for example, sum. I'll click this, I'll hold control. I can do that also. Now, to create a drop-down menu, we just have to right-click a certain cell, then go down to data validation. Then you can input the list item. Let's say income, expense. There, now we have a drop-down menu that you can select whether it's an income or an expense. Another thing that we're going to be doing is by applying conditional formatting. And say, for example, what I want to do is that if the number is negative, make the text red. If the number is positive, make it green. So I'll just select these 2 cells, right-click, conditional formatting. If the value in the cell is greater than 0, meaning it's positive, make it green. If the value is negative, which means that it's less than 0, make it red. And that's it. So once there's conditional formatting, it can just automatically detect whether or not it follows a certain condition. So if I put negative 200, it's going to detect that it's a negative number and it will make it red. Next, we're going to have to drag to apply the formula to other cells. Let's say, for example, we've already applied certain formulas in the cells here, and I want to apply the same thing down here. You just need to hover over the lower right corner of the cell and it will turn into a crosshair. Drag it, then now the formula has been applied. The next thing you should know is how to freeze cells. Say, for example, in the cash flow sheet, you can see that it's frozen, meaning that if I scroll to the right, this part of the sheet is frozen. So the way to do that, let's say, for example, it's not frozen, right? If I scroll to the right, it's not frozen. I just have to go up here until it turns into a hand cursor. Then I drag it. There we go. Once it's frozen, if I scroll to the right, this part of the sheet is frozen. Next, how to pull data from a certain cell. Say, for example, the value I want here, I want it to copy whatever is in this cell. So I'll type equal sign, then I'll click on this cell, so that whatever is the value here, let's say for example, I'll make it 4,000, it will also change here. Next, we're going to be pulling data from a different sheet on the same spreadsheet. So same concept, I'll just put equal sign, and let's say for example, I want to pull data from here. I'll click on this. There. You can see that it's 2,550, same as the data from here. And if it changes, let's say for example, it became 2,750, it also changed here. Now to get the percentage of the composition, this is useful for this part of the spreadsheet. All you have to do, let's say for example, how much of a percent is 350 of 1,000? So I'll just put equal sign, 350 divided by 1,000. You can see that it's still a decimal, so I just have to go up here to format it as a percentage. Then to get the percentage gain and loss, let's say for example, your 1,200 peso investment increased to 1,500. So to get the percentage gain, you just have to put equal sign, 1,500 over 1,200 minus 1. There we go. Format as a percentage, and it's a 25% gain on your 1,200 peso investment. Alright, so the cash flow sheet. In personal finance, it's super important to be able to keep track of where your money goes so that you'll be able to manage it properly. So the one we're about to make isn't really a budgeting tracker, but the purpose of this sheet just helps you become more aware of your spending, just tracking every single peso that goes in and out of your accounts. Right, so let's get started with the fresh spreadsheet. Right, so first, let's start by putting our account names. For this example, I'll be putting 4 bank accounts, 1 credit card, 2 physical wallets, and 3 e-wallets. So something I want to point out that wasn't here before is the credit card column. I mentioned before that I treat credit cards the same way I treat cash, which is why I put it here as an account. I'll show you how this works later. I also like to put the account numbers on top of the bank name so that it's easier for me to reference when I need it. Then we'll put the current balance, the initial balance, and because I divide my trackers into quarters and this sheet is for the first quarter, I'll put the first 3 months in this sheet. Nice. Now I'll put the headers in the tracking log, which will have the date, transaction, and the details. Then I'll just copy the account names by holding Shift and selecting the cells, then pasting them here. Let's go ahead and add zeros for the numbers. To make it look more financy, you can format the numbers into financial or accounting. I'll copy and paste the format to the rest of the rows because we want all of them to be financy. Now I'm gonna add the drop-down menu for the transaction types. I'll do this by selecting this cell, holding Ctrl, Shift, and then the down arrow key. Then I'll right-click, data validation, and then I'll choose list of items. So I'll be putting income, expense, transfer, savings, and investments. Nice. Now I want to add color because beautiful. Once again, I'll select the rows, conditional formatting, and then select condition if text contains. So by doing this, I can tell the program na if the text contains income, I want it green. If it says expense, I want it red, and so on. Charan! Much nicer. Now I want to format the numbers. So what I'm gonna do is that if it's positive, meaning it's greater than 0, or I'm adding to an account, I want it to turn green. Then if it's negative, meaning less than 0, I want it to turn red. This just makes it easier for me to identify whether or not I'm adding or subtracting the transaction. Then I'll also do the same formatting to the numbers in the transaction log. Nice. Now I want to divide the sheet per month. First, I'll type in the month, then I'll select the cells, hold Shift, then I'm gonna merge by clicking this button that looks like a door. I'll repeat this for each month, and then I'll change the background color to gray so that it's easier for me to see. Nice. Now I want to apply the formula so that the sheet actually starts tracking your money. This is really simple stuff. I'll type equals, sum, parenthesis, and then I'll select the cells by either typing their range or by clicking them. Now I'm gonna drag this cell so that the formula I just applied gets applied to other cells. Ta-da! Work smart, not hard. Then just repeat this for the other months. Nice. So now I'm gonna make some adjustments by making this bigger. I'm also gonna make the headers bold. Then I'll increase the size of the account name so that it's easier for me to see. Nice. Okay, now I'm also gonna freeze the rows and columns, so I'm just gonna hover to this box here until it turns to a glove, and then drag, so that it stays in place even when I scroll down or scroll to the right. Then I'll get the total balance by getting the sum of the current balances of all of the accounts. And then to get the current balance of each account, I'm going to get the sum of the initial balance and the total transactions of all of the months. And then if you don't want to see too many numbers, you can just hide them. So you just select all of the rows, right click, hide rows, there we go. Then if you want to see it, you can just unhide it. Alright, I'm just going to demo this sheet for you. For example, you got paid for your freelance work. I'm just going to type, got paid for freelance work, 3,500 to bank number 2. Much nice. And you can see that it updated up here. Then we'll go to bought markers on Shopee, minus 250. Ayun, it also reflects up there. So the reason why I put the credit card here and why I didn't separate it is just so that I can see at a glance if whether or not I have a balance on my credit card. So if you can see it's red, there's a balance on my credit card that I need to pay as soon as possible. And let's say, for example, I'm going to pay off my credit card bill. I'm just going to tag it as a transfer and I'll put paid for CC bill. And then the bank account and then the credit card. So the goal is to have your credit card current balance to always 0. Very nice, cash flow sheet done. Let's start building the investment trackers. I mostly invest in funds, so this investment tracker is really targeted towards tracking fund investments. I think it can also work for individual stock investments, but you can always tweak this according to how you want to use it. Right, so I'll start with a new sheet. I'll type in the header information I want to track, composition, ticker, total quantity, total cost, average price, last price, total value, percentage of gain and loss, and then the numerical gain and loss. I'm also going to add the header rows for the transaction log, mostly the same with the addition of the transaction date, the platform, and the security. Then I'll type the information I want for the summary, which has the total cost, total value, numerical gain and loss, percentage gain loss, and then buying power. Then I'm just going to do some style stuff. I will bold the headers and freeze the columns and rows. That's how simple the spreadsheet is. Now I'm going to put some sample data so that I can show you guys how it works. So let's say, for example, I have 3 kinds of funds. I'll start adding their tickers up here. The first thing I want to do is to sum up the quantity of each fund that I have. You can do that in 2 ways. So the more advanced way is by using the SUMIF function. So the SUMIF function is useful, especially if your transaction log isn't really in order. So you just have to nominate based on certain criteria. Medyo hard to explain, so you can just copy what I do. But if it's too hard for you, you can just use the easier way by using the sum function. And then equals, sum, and then manually select the cells you want to sum. Then I want to get the sum of the total cost of each fund. Now that I have that, I want to get the average price of each share I have of each fund. So I can do that by dividing the total cost by the total quantity. So in this case, I want to get the average price per share of FMETF. I'm just going to divide the total cost of the FMETF by the total quantity of FMETF shares I have. There we go. So the average price is about 89 pesos. I'm just going to drag this formula so that I can apply it to the other cells. So for this sheet, I wanted to semi-automate the tracking of the gains. First, I'll change the background color for a visual reminder that these are the values that I want to type into. Then to get the total value, I'll simply get the product of quantity and last price. Now to calculate the percentage of gain and loss, I'll just divide the total value over the total cost minus 1. So it's still decimal, so I'm going to click the percent button to turn it into a percentage. Then to calculate for the numerical gains and losses, I'll just subtract the total value of my shares to the total cost. I'm also going to apply conditional formatting so that I can see whether it's a gain or a loss. Right, so now I'm going to show you how it's semi-automatic. If you see the last price, I'll just put equal sign and then I'll select the cell I want to get the values from. So what that does is that essentially whatever the number is up there, it's going to copy down here. So for the other columns, we're just going to do the same thing. To get the total value, you multiply the last price to the quantity. I'll drag the cells so that the formula gets applied to the other cells. Then we're also gonna get the percentage gain loss. And then for the gain loss, just subtract the total value from the total cost. I'm gonna apply conditional formatting so that it's easier for me to see whether it's a gain or a loss. So I'm just doing the same things as the one I did on the top header. Alright, now I'm going to show you guys how this is semi-automatic. I'm going to change the price here. Right, first for FMETF, then XPEIF. Yeah, you can see down here that the prices are actually changing. Right, so for the summary, the total cost is just the sum of all of the total costs of each fund. The total value is the sum of all of the total values of each fund. Now let's make my MP2 tracker. So this is very basic tracking. It's nothing elaborate. So I'm gonna start off with another blank sheet. I'll first put the months. So I'll start with January and then I'll just drag it down. Then the year, because MP2 is usually 5 years. Then I'll put in the year contribution, which is how much I've contributed for the year. The total contribution, the dividend I'm going to receive, the percent, and then percent as in how much that dividend is as a percentage of my total contribution for that year. Then a total balance. Right, so let's start putting formulas. For the year's contribution, I'm just gonna sum up all of the values in these months. So that's equals sum, and then from January to December of that year. Then I'm just gonna drag it out to apply that formula to the other cells. So the total contribution just represents the contributions for this year plus the previous years. Let me just drag it out to apply the formula. Then we have the percent, which is the dividend divided by the total contributions for that year. So this isn't really how Pag-IBIG calculates their dividends. The way they do it is usually like if you deposit earlier in the year, then you get more dividends because it works as like a average monthly balance kind of thing. But yeah, this is just for me to get an idea of how many percent dividends I got. Then for the total balance, I'm just gonna sum up the total contribution and the dividend. Yeah, so these are the formulas. Then I'm just gonna drag it out. I'm just gonna show it to you guys how it works. So let's say, for example, I deposited 500 pesos starting February for every month, that my total balance is 5,500 pesos. Say, for example, next year I get the report that the dividend I got for this year was 300 pesos and it already updated the other balances for the other years. Now, just to show you more, if I were to deposit 500 pesos not consistently in 2022, it will also update the total balance for the other years. That's pretty much it. I'm just gonna put some borders, some colors, so it's easier for me to see. And I'm just gonna call this Fire Plan, for example, because you can open several MP2 accounts, right? Now I'm gonna enter the summary table on top, Pag-IBIG MP2. And I'm just gonna put the total contributions and then the total balance. Let's say, for example, you have more than one MP2 account. I'll call this one for the house fund. And say, for example, I'm gonna change how much I contributed to this account. Yeah, it changes the values. So for total contributions, I'm just gonna get the sum of the total contributions of each MP2 account. Then as for the total balance, well, that's just the sum of the balances of both MP2 accounts. Yeah, that's about it. I'm just gonna bold it and then freeze the rows. Charan! MP2 tracker. Alright, very good. Now we have our cash flow sheets and investment sheets. Now it's time to combine them into one overview dashboard. So same as before, I'm just gonna put my portfolio. Then I'll just put the headers. That's the target composition, the cost, the value, and then the percentage gain and loss. So the way I'm gonna do this, I'm just gonna put cash and investments. So for this example, let's put the fund 1, fund 2, fund 3. Okay, so now to get these values, you just press equal sign. And then you go to the actual sheet. Say, for example, we're going to 2021 cash flow Q1. Yeah, magic. So we'll do the same thing for the other cells. For the mutual funds, I'll get it from the funds template. But just like a quick hack, you can just drag it down and it will copy the cells below the cell you selected. Then for Pag-IBIG MP2, same thing. The cost is the total contributions, while the total balance is the value. So for the investments, I just get the sum of everything down here. And then after all of that, I'm gonna get the total of my cash and my investments. I'll also make it bigger just so that there's more emphasis. Next, to get the composition of each line item, I'm gonna put equal sign, then divided by the total value. For the total value, I'm gonna add dollar signs to lock the reference cell. I'll make it into a percentage, then I'll drag it down to apply the formula to the other cells. Then since this is a breakdown of the investments, I'm just gonna change it to a lighter color. Then for the percentage gain loss, I'm gonna do this for the investments. So it's equals value divided by cost minus 1. Turn it into a percentage and then drag it down. And then I'll also be putting conditional formatting just so that it's easier for me to see the differences. This is more or less done, but now I'm going to create a pie chart to see a visual representation of my portfolio distribution. So I'm going to select the cells, insert chart, then I'll pick the pie chart. For the data range, you can see that it includes the cash and the investments, so I'm just going to remove that. I'll just input the rows depending on how you formatted it. There we go. Now you can see the breakdown of your investments, how many percent in cash and how many percent of each investment. Then I want to rename the chart to portfolio distribution. Nice. And then I am gonna add another chart just to see the division of my investments and cash. It's the same thing as the earlier chart, but this is without the breakdown of the investments. Now because all of the sheets are connected to this portfolio dashboard, I'll show you what happens if we change it. So we'll go to the fund tracker. I'll change the last price of the FM ETF, say 120. Then you can see that the number here changed. Then we'll go to MP2. Let's say I added a 2,000 peso contribution. And you'll also see that it changed here. Ta-da! You now have a complete finance tracker spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. They're so customizable. I prefer them to using other apps. It's still pretty basic. I'm looking to improve this more in the future as I learn more skills. You guys can follow me on Instagram. I post stories there almost every day. Like the Facebook page, join the Discord server. Thank you guys so much for watching. Whew! I'll see you guys next week. Bye.